Right, let's unpack some of these elements. Joining us now to discuss the impact in court losses suffered by the ANC in its challenges against the MK party is Associate Professor and Academic Head of Department of Sociology at the University of the Free State, Professor Sethulego Matebesi. A very good evening to you, Professor. Thank you so much for your time. In its ruling, the KwaZulu-Natal High Court said the ANC's delayed application was self-created, and that it pointed a finger at Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, also saying that the ANC only started thinking about the consequences of the use of the name and symbols when former President Jacob Zuma officially now announced his support for the MK party. What do you make of these latest developments? And of course, speaking about the potential threat that Zuma is for the ANC.
Yes, good evening, Mpo, and good evening to the viewers. So far, it's 3 out of 3 for MK party, and one have to look at the significant impact that these court findings will have for the MK's party's election drive. And I strongly believe that you've got a new party that have been so well marketed in terms of these court battles. I strongly believe that they will be emboldened with their election campaign, but whether this will have significant impact on the African National Congress, that's another question. But I do believe that it is not good, and I hear what the Secretary General also stated about the current leader of MK, the former president, not being dispelled. It's all these things that I strongly believe that will come back to haunt the African National Congress, because I strongly believe by now the ANC should have made or pronounced at least on what action have they taken against the former president.
What we did here today is Mbalula saying they're not challenging Zuma's formation of a party, but because he has the right to form it, but he cannot use the name and logo, and that is what is now leading them to appealing this matter, believing that they have a chance at it. What impact do you think that all of this legal wrangling has on the ANC and perhaps the benefit of the MK party?
No, it's, as I've indicated, I mean, MK has been formed towards the end of last year, and nowhere in the history of South African politics post-1994 have we seen a new party receiving so much coverage. And that's why I think these court battles, it's also in favor, of MK's electoral campaign, because they've been in the news almost every second day. But whether at the end of the day this is going to work for them, it's another question. But I strongly believe that it does give them leverage. It does bodes well for them. And at the end of the day, the question that remains is, what is MK going to make about us? Because already, as they have been indicating, is that it seems as if the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, and even the IEC itself, as an agenda against the former president. And it's, one would like to see how that will resonate with the South African voters. But I strongly believe that MK perhaps will just garner support in their home province, which is KwaZulu-Natal. They will battle to get a national footprint. But at the end of the day, we all know that negative outcomes has some reputational damage, and it is not good for the image of a party which is almost more than a century old. By the way, I don't think it's good for the African National Congress, although in public you will never hear such pronouncement of disappointment about these outcomes.
More so because the ANC already has a mammoth task ahead of persuading the electorate to vote for the party in the general elections next month. I mean, that in itself speaks volumes, looking at how important the matter of image is at this present time.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, if you look at, as I've indicated, the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, and even the IEC itself, as an agenda against the former president. And that's why I think these court battles, it's also in favor, of MK, because already, as they have been indicating, is that it seems as if the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, and even the IEC itself, as an agenda against the former president. And that's why I think these court battles, it's also in favor of MK, because already, as they have been indicating, is that it seems as if the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, and even the IEC itself, as an agenda against the former president. And that's why I think these court battles, it's also in favor of MK, because already, as they have been indicating, is that it seems as if the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, and even the IEC itself, as an agenda against the former president. And that's why I think these court battles, it's also in favor of MK, because already, as they have been indicating, is that it seems as if the African National Con and I've stated this before, it's very important that it's actually very commendable for a party like MK to use democratic institutions. A party whose members has been labeled as being violent, and that for me is very commendable, where our representative institutions like your courts could make pronouncements on very fundamental issues that will have a huge impact on our elections going forward. But with each positive reporting, I think this stands good for MK party. And as I've indicated, this has been unheard of. We never have such lessons in the history of South African where your new parties get so much coverage. And we have seen also in the past how some parties, new parties, even crumble before the elections. And I don't believe that we have yet reached a stage where we can now say, and this applies to all political parties, where we can say now they've reached that intensity in terms of their election campaign. And one just wonders what is going to happen when that happens a couple of weeks before the elections. And I strongly believe the next 2 weeks will be very decisive, where I strongly believe that that will be a critical time in terms of the election campaigns of these parties. And I will not be surprised that all these court cases will then become part of the narrative of MK party. And believe me or not, but also perhaps other opposition parties will latch into that.
Yeah, more so because the ANC is saying that they have solid ground to launch an appeal. And one wouldn't have imagined that they'd want to be in court at a time where they should really be focusing on advancing the party and ensuring that people do make their mark. Do you think it's a good idea to appeal this matter, considering how serious the ANC is taking it, saying that they believe the MK party is trying to mislead the public over the name, arguing it's the ANC's trademarks and symbols?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to even start to respond to such a question, because I strongly believe that it's within the ANC's right to do so. And once again, these are the opportunities that are available. And I strongly believe that the ANC will not rely on emotions. And perhaps they did get legal advice to take this matter on appeal. But the longer the matter is being ventilated in our courts, I think the more coverage for MK party. Yeah. But I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with the African National Congress to have to take this particular route. Perhaps they believe that it will be in their favor, but I strongly believe that all these court cases, appearances, is working in favor of MK, irrespective of the outcome. But it definitely works in favor of them, because we've seen the number of people who turn up at these court cases, but also in terms of the pronouncement made during each sitting of these cases where MK party is involved.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi there, talking to us about some of the impacts that sitting in court could have for the MK party.